This is episode 48 of a series where we examine the cut content, design, and development of Fallout New Vegas. In today's episode, we're taking a look at out-of-bound secrets, cut robots, glitches, and much more. To begin, Camp McCarran's areas are named Camp McCarran Terminal Interior 1, 2, and 4. The third cell is notably absent and was likely deleted from the game files. It seems the entrance to the third terminal can still be found in the concourse area, but it was later covered up by rubble. I think we can safely assume that unique characters or part of a quest would have been present here, but it's unknown if that content was never implemented or if it was recycled to the remaining cells. Along with the cut south gate I mentioned in the NCR video, the base seems to have had a very different layout early in development. Unfortunately, no early screenshots or footage exist of the original interior, so it's impossible to say just how much different it was. There is this awesome concept art that gives an idea of its envisioned scale, but concept art is also created without technical limitations in mind. The area outside of Camp McCarran was also meant to be much more dangerous, as there are 15 permanently disabled fiends in the nearby area.
Well, the thing is, there's this girl.
During the quest Young Hearts, the courier brings Janet to Nellis Air Force Base to meet Jack. Markers lead the player directly to Janet at Crimson Caravan, but it seems that finding her once required some detective work. Some of the Crimson Caravan guards have unused dialogue about the quest, suggesting the player needed to track Janet down. Lines like, "Do you know any redheads in these parts?" and "I'm looking for a redheaded girl around here." There's also an unused message called CC Janet. This is seemingly insignificant at first, but messages can be used to change a character's displayed name. For instance, during the quest I Fought the Law, Eddie sends the player to investigate a traveling merchant. After discovering his real profession, his name is changed to Bounty Hunter using a message. It seems Janet would have had a generic NPC name initially, but it would change once her identity was revealed. It's difficult to speculate further since nothing else remains from this cut objective, but finding Janet was once more complex than just walking up to her. If the player convinces Janet to travel to Nellis Air Force Base, but fails to give her a boomer disguise, she's killed by artillery fire. Jack has two unused dialogue lines that were meant to be triggered if the player failed the quest in this method. However, neither line ever plays in the PC version, and his generic greetings continue to play instead.
You're a terrible person. I loved her, and you let her run right into our kill zone. Why didn't you stop her? Go to hell, outsider. Stay away from me.
An additional Mr. Gutsy was meant to be found at Nellis Air Force Base. It's noted as being deactivated, so I suspect the player was going to repair it during a cut part of the quest Volare. This likely would have resulted in a minor reputation boost with the boomers. It's certainly possible it was related to a different cut quest though. When you enter the greenhouses found at NCR Sharecropper farms, you're transported to a new world space called Greenhouse World 01. Every single greenhouse interior in the core game can be found here, and it's a cool area that you would normally never see. There are some greenhouses for the boomers here, but they were never linked to the greenhouse doors in the Wasteland world space, almost certainly due to an oversight. The greenhouse interiors still exist outside Nellis, and you still get a prompt to open the door to enter the area, but since they aren't linked, the player isn't transported. It's somewhat pointless as there's nothing of interest inside them, or really inside any of the greenhouses in FNV, but it would have been a nice touch if they were actually accessible. At the end of Volare, The player attaches ballast to a B-29 bomber and raises it from the depths of Lake Mead. The detonator can only be triggered near the tow winch, which ensures the player sees this scene from a specific angle, and there's a very good reason for that. In this case, the plane doesn't actually float up from the bottom of the lake. When the player hits the detonator, the original model is disabled, and a second model with expanded ballast then spawns on the water's surface. It looks totally janky from other perspectives, but it works from the player's view. I love getting to see how events like this are creatively handled behind the scenes. Sometime after the completion of Volare, the Nellis hangar where Loyal is found, Nellis Hangar 1, is replaced by a nearly identical cell, Nellis Hangar 1B. The doors leading to the first cell are disabled, and the doors leading to the second hangar are then triggered. The second cell contains the B-29 bomber the player recovers from Lake Mead, and boomers on scaffolding who are fixing the plane. I'm not sure why this was done, and I don't think cells are switched like this at any other point in the entire game. If the player happened to store any items in the old interior, they're lost forever, short of using console commands. After this switch, a bug can occur where Loyal becomes trapped inside the purgatory of the old interior. Since the doors that once led to it are now disabled, he can no longer be reached or escape. Even stranger, Loyal can be teleported to Black Mountain and be killed by the super mutants found there. It's apparently related to the cell switch, but I was unable to recreate this glitch. Neither bug would be that big of a deal, except Loyal is essential for old school Ghoul, so completing Volare first can potentially break Raoul's companion quest. In Fallout 3, the Child at Heart perk unlocked unique dialogue options with children, and it was intended to have the same effect in FNV. This perk was still in-game relatively late in development as it was used during the E3 press demo. Its Pip-Boy icon still remains, and several lines of dialogue are still marked for it. There's an unmarked quest at Nellis called Bare Necessities. In it, the player finds Lindsay's lost teddy bear, Mr. Cuddles. In the final game, the player is given no clue where it might be, but Lindsay once told the player its location if they had Child at Heart.
Oh, I remember now. I was playing hide and seek in the big hangar. Mr. Loyal made us leave though.
Due to this item appearing in the Nellis hangar that gets swapped out, there's actually two versions of this item, one in each cell. In this way, you can tell Lindsay you destroyed Mr. Cuddles and keep both of them for yourself.
No, not Mr. Cuddles.
In a similar unmarked quest, saving or salvaging Sergeant Teddy, the player finds Melody's teddy bear at the fort. The player has to pass a speech check of 50 to receive this quest. However, the player could once start it by speaking to Melody if they had Child at Heart.
Okay, do you think you could help me?
During the quest, The Whitewash, the player can convince Hector to tell them what happened to Corporal White by passing a speech check of 80. Originally, it seems you needed the Child at Heart perk to unlock this dialogue though. If the player had the perk while talking to one of the children at Bitter Springs, they'd receive a cut item called Barnabas Bear.
I like you. Will you take Barnabas Bear to New Vegas when you go?
The other children here also have a few other cut lines related to the perk.
The man with the spiky hat comes into camp at night.
I say, would you like some of this absolutely delightful confection I found? I've been grazing on it all day.
Did you know ants can get this big? I saw snake puppies in the hills.
The player could also get Euclid's Sea Finder from Max in Freeside by saying, "I'm a space soldier. The general sent me to borrow your gun to stop the alien invasion."
Really? Cool. Bring it back to me when you're done, okay? I think Stacy might be turning into an alien.
In the final game, the player is forced to buy or steal it from Max. This perk was almost certainly cut due to how few children there are in FNV and how few dialogue options it added. Josh Sawyer revealed more about the design of children on Tumblr. Children, when used, were supposed to be out of the way, polite, differential, and as inoffensive as possible. We did not always adhere to those standards, and I'm still sorry for it. During the quest, There Stands the Grass, the player travels to Vault 22. The top levels are abandoned and have been reclaimed by nature, but as the player explores its lower levels, they discover the vault's inhabitants were transformed into mindless spore carriers by an experimental fungus. This location is one of my favorite areas in the series, and easily one of the creepiest. There are two cut characters here, Coke, a sentry bot, and Boar, a protectron, both of whom belong to Keeley. Their names were meant to be a reference to scientist Robert Koch and Niels Bohr. It's unknown where Bohr would be found, as the protectron was either never placed or was outright deleted from the cell. That said, it seems it would have been found near the entrance, and would have been the first NPC the player met inside the vault. Bohr has a few lines of unused dialogue that would become accessible at this point.
Greetings. I do not believe we have met before. I have the singular distinction of being designated as Bohr. A pleasure to meet you, sir. What may I do for you? A pleasure to meet you, madam. What may I do for you? My, how rude. If you must know, I am here to assist my master Keeley in her research. Why yes, the master was here some time ago. Do you have business with her? Very well. I'll get back to computing these protein sequences then. Farewell. I couldn't say exactly. She went down to the lower levels some time ago and hasn't been back since. Do you suppose something has happened to her? Oh, thank you. The master can really be a bother sometimes, but she has a good heart. Now I must get back to computing protein sequences. Please tell the master to hurry back if you see her. I have been given explicit instructions to stay here until the master returns. Very little, I'm afraid. I've been stuck here calculating protein sequences for most of our sojourn here thus far. Master Keeley has done most of the exploring. She might be able to tell you more. I am assisting my master Keeley with her research. We have been tasked with extracting as much of the research that was performed here as possible, calculating.
Coke can still be found inside the Vault 22 common room, but is disabled. A script refers to Coke as both male and female, and its name would have displayed as Broken Sentry Bot initially. It was meant to be found in a deactivated state, and a series of unused messages reveal the player could have repaired it. If the player had a skill of repair below 40, this message would be triggered. This Sentry Bot looks like it's seen some heavy fighting recently. You could probably get it running again if you knew a little bit more about machines. If the player had a skill of 40 or higher, this message would appear instead. You could probably get it partially running again with a little work. After successfully repairing Coke, this message would appear. You managed to get most of the robot systems operational, but its leg activators are beyond repair, leaving it immobile. At this point, Coke would play a series of greetings.
Status. Operational. Loading memory banks. Current designation. Koch. Current mission. Warning. Primary defensive objective. Designation Keeley. Taken by unknown hostile entities. Initiating full countermeasures.
The Sentry Bot also has a single unrecorded line called V22 Coke Warning, but unfortunately only the dialogue topics still exist. The scripting for this scene is a total mess though. The message tells the player they need a repair skill of 40, but the actual code checks for a skill of 60. Coke would have been dead when found, and when repaired, the script uses the command Resurrect 1. This command resurrects a dead character and makes them use the animation to stand back up. However, sentry bots have no animation to stand up, which causes a weird animation bug where they spin around in a circle before coming back to life. Resurrect 0 should have been used instead, which brings a character back to life, but without the animation to stand up. Unfortunately, this causes a different bug when used on sentry bots, where they get teleported several feet in the air. Coke's purpose was to help the player defeat the spore carriers found inside the common area. However, the repair message reveals he's immobile, and there are no enemies on the level where he's found, making him entirely useless. Even further, he's a part of FNV's robot faction, which is a friend to the spore carrier faction. So, if the player fought any of the enemies inside the vault, Coke would become hostile and try to kill them. Perhaps there were meant to be additional enemies in this area. Fighting off waves of infected plant monsters with Coke would have been an iconic moment, but if this was planned, there's no remnant of it. While both robots are voiced, their dialogue adds very little to the experience, and I think cutting them was the right decision. Keely's dialogue never even acknowledges the robot's existence, despite supposedly owning them. Boar provides no useful information whatsoever, and Coke is glitchy as fuck. If anything, their very presence removed the tension from what is, other than Keely, a hostile, alien, and lonely environment. Modder Moburma restored these cut characters in his mod New Vegas Uncut 2. If you're interested in checking it out, there's a link below in the description.
Dead? But that's terrible. You're sure? You saw her body? With the way she looks, maybe she just seemed dead and she really wasn't. No. You've seen enough death to know the difference. I didn't mean to sound ungrateful. I know you tried. Keely was brilliant. She'd seen so much. What a horrible waste.
If Keely dies during the quest, the player can tell Angela Williams that she died, and they receive no experience as a result. There's an alternate player line where you could tell Angela that Keely is dead, but that you also found her research notes. It's impossible to trigger this line in the final game, but it would have resulted in the player receiving 400 experience, and they'd hear an additional line.
The notes count for something. I'll keep them safe. Keely's work in the vault won't be lost, and it won't be forgotten.
The spore plants inside Vault 22 were meant to drop an item called Spore Plant Pods. This cut item provides a minor healing effect and gave the player poison resistance for a short time. Like many cut items, it can still be found inside the test map world space. It would have been very useful against Cazadors, as there are very few items in the core game that provide poison resistance. This item would later appear in the Honest Hearts and Old World Blues DLCs. There's an oversight where the exterior vault door actually reads Vault 92 instead of Vault 22. Vault 22's door is open, and you can see inside of it, which is a really cool detail. Normally this area is inaccessible, but if you no-clip through it, you can see the entire area is fully modeled. There is also some low poly plants and other set pieces, and I love hidden details like this. Some of these changes would have made FNV into an even better game. Ultimately though, all of this was left on the cutting room floor.